All right, we are back with another tier list. This time I am ranking every team's best pass rusher. And just to be clear, when I say pass rusher, I don't just mean edge rusher. You can be on the inside, it can be an interior guy, but if you are an interior guy, I am solely focused on how you rush the passer. I am not taking into account, your run defense, which a lot of times interior guys are kind of great at both of those things. But that's how I'm viewing this. The 5 categories are the guys who beat double teams. Even if you put several guys on them, are still finding ways to get to the quarterbacks. Then there's the you better double him, which is if you double him, you'll probably be okay. But like if you don't, you're in trouble. We then have the guys who can beat one-on-ones consistently. And then there is someone I would still, is still a number one. Someone I do consider a number one pass rusher, but just not much more than that. And then finally, you're a number one, a guy who maybe still might be a good player, but probably isn't a number one pass rusher. So let's just kick things off with the Titans, who I think I got to go interior right off the bat, right? Jeffrey Simmons kind of has to be the guy, I think. And, definitely a pretty dominant player from the inside. Again, I think that, edge rushers tend to just be a little bit easier to get to the quarterback. But to me, Simmons is still a guy that you better at least double. He is someone who can consistently get to the quarterback if you're leaving him one-on-one. So that's kind of how I view him. The Dolphins, well, I mean, again, Jalen Phillips maybe could have gotten there, but coming off of the injury now, I mean, both him and Bradley Chubb are coming off of injuries, but I do feel like Bradley Chubb's probably the better player. Again, the injury thing is a little concerning. I'm going to put him in beats one-on-ones consistently. That feels pretty fair for me. I think he's a pretty good at rushing the passer pretty effectively, and I think that him and Phillips going down towards the end of last year was certainly disappointing. If you're a Dolphins fan, we didn't have the Jets, who I mean, again, there's several ways you could go. I think you gotta go Hassan Reddick here. Again, Quinnen Williams is probably their best pure players. I think Quinnen Williams is probably he's certainly the best defensive lineman. I'll still go Quinnen Williams actually, and I think I'm gonna put him kind of similar to Simmons, like a guy you got to double. You just do, like if you don't, you're gonna be in trouble. So that's where I'm gonna put him. We then have Trey Hendrickson, another guy who I think feels like he falls into beats one-on-ones consistently, right? A guy who can consistently get to the quarterback, does have pretty good numbers across the board. So yeah, I think he's good. We then have the Cleveland Browns, who have Myles Garrett, who feels like an obvious, like if you put 2 guys on him, it's usually not enough. He does legitimately beat double teams a lot. Like that's not just an expression. Like that's usually what he has to do, because he's getting double teamed every play and still finds a way to get to the quarterback consistently. So I'm kind of learning here. It feels like a lot of teams have good pass rushers, or maybe it'll change as we get further down the list. But Josh Allen feels like another you better double him type guy, right? Like I think leaving him one-on-one is not a recipe for disaster. He'll win those basically every time. So again, unfortunately for him, he does get double teamed a lot, just given how that Jaguars defensive line has been over the years. But he's usually very good. Aiden Hutchinson, I mean, yeah, I kind of think, I put him on my top 10 edge rushers list for a reason. Like, I think that he's another guy that, like, you have to double consistently or you're going to be in trouble. So, because of that, that's where I have him. Looking at the Vikings, another team that, like, it's kind of hard to figure out exactly who I'm choosing. I think I'm going to go Dallas Turner here. Who is a rookie, so I can't say he's definitely a number one as of yet. I think I'm going to say you're a number one question mark. Now, I think that he could end up being a really good number one if things go well, and they have other, like, I like Andrew Van Ginkel a decent amount. He was I think PFF loved him last year. I thought he was pretty good last year, but I just think that as of right now, there's no one that I'm currently like, oh yeah, definitely is there. So that's how I'm viewing it. Then we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who another team that it's like, where exactly do you go here with them? Is it Yaya Diaby? Probably, I guess. I mean, you could go. Honestly, Kalijah Kancey might be the pick. Again, if we're just talking pass rush, he was really good as a pass rusher last year. His run defense needs improvement, to say the least, but the pass rush is good. That being said, though, I still don't know if he's like proven to be like a number one guy just yet. So I think that there's a question mark there, and I would put the same for Diaby. So yeah. Then we have the San Francisco 49ers, who have Nick Bosa. He's kind of the obvious choice, so he's the guy I'm picking. Who, again, I'm going to put into you better double him category. That again feels right. I think again, very few people are going to be into beats double teams. Usually, if you double team someone, like, you get them out of the play. But again, Bosa will win the occasional matchup even when he's doubled, but that's just difficult to do. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who are, again, a difficult team to choose. Falcons fans have to be happy if they're rooting to be high on this tier list that I am including interior guys, because the edge rusher situation is looking a little rough. I think Grady Jarrett has to be the pick. He's easily the best defensive lineman. The thing about Jarrett, though, is he's very much an all-around defensive lineman, right? Good at both pass rush and run defense. So because of that, like, I think I'm going to put him into is still a number one pass rusher. Like, he still is really good at that, but he's not like again, what makes him so special is he's really good at as an interior guy, but that you're not going to get as much pressure from the inside as you do from the, an edge. Being an interior guy who can still get here is very impressive. And, so that's just where I have him, in my opinion. We then have Justin Matabuke, who kind of for similar reasons of what I just said with Jarrett, I think I have to put in is still a number one tier. I think that, again, kind of, had his best year last year. So I don't know if I just don't know how repeatable that is. I'm assuming it's relatively repeatable, but we'll see. I do think that he is someone who's very good. Definitely a number one guy, which is difficult to do as an interior. But I don't know if he's like the, just someone who's consistently getting pressure, just because that's, again, it's easier to do that as an edge than it is as a interior guy. We then have with the Chicago Bears, Montez Sweat has to be the pick. Montez Sweat's good. I like Montez Sweat. I think I'm going to put him in the beats one-on-ones consistently tier as well. It was interesting when people were like, wait, Montez Sweat went for less than Chase Young did, or went for more than Chase Young did. And I was kind of like, well, yeah, have you seen them play? Like, I like Chase Young. I actually think he's underrated. He's not Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat is a very good player, easily a number one pass rusher. Then with the Dallas Cowboys, Micah Parsons is kind of an obvious choice. And listen, I've kind of poured cold water on the Micah Parsons hype in the past. Only when, like, he gets compared to J.J. Watt and he gets compared, T.J. Watt, and he gets compared to Myles Garrett. And I've always kind of been like, well, those guys are also elite run defenders. But we're not talking run defense. We're talking just pure pass rush right now, and he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. Another guy who he'll beat double teams when it comes to that stuff. That's kind of where I viewed him. Then Danielle Hunter, who the Danielle Hunter discourse got a little bit weird. Were essentially his box score numbers said that he was like a top 5 pass rusher. His more advanced stats said he was like a top 25 pass rusher. And so because of that, like, again, I feel like that's worth mentioning, is I'm going to kind of view him closer to like the top 25 guy than the top 5 guy, but I still think he's a very good player. I definitely still think he's a number one. I'm kind of in between. Does he beat one-on-ones consistently? When I watch him, does he beat one-on-ones consistently? Yeah, I'll say so. I'll put him in that tier. That feels fair for me. Then we have the Colts, who, it's got to be DeForest Buckner, right? I think DeForest Buckner, who is a really, again, as a pure pass rusher, like, I think is just really good. I do think he's another guy who beats one-on-ones consistently. I do. So that's where I have him. And then we have the Rams. I guess, again, I think I have to go back interior, right? I've got to go Kobe Turner, who had a really good rookie year. They have spent a couple other premium picks on defensive linemen. We'll see how that goes. I'll say Kobe Turner, kind of similar to Matabuke, similar to Jarrett. It's like, yeah, you're still a number one pass rusher, even though you're an interior guy. I just don't know if I can go too much higher. Next up is the Chargers, who at this point, I think I have to go Khalil Mack as their number one guy, right? Is that too hot of a take? I don't know. Khalil Mack's been really good for them. I think he's a really good player. I think he is a guy who I'm going to put all the way up into you better double him tier, because when he didn't get doubled last year, he got to the quarterback. Bosa coming off an injury. Maybe I'm selling him short, but that's where I view Mack. And then for Max Crosby with the Raiders, I don't know if I'm going to quite put him in beats double teams. Again, it's very difficult to get into that tier, but definitely on the higher end of you better double him. If you saw my top edge rushers list, you know how much I value him. Part of it is he's one of the best run defenders in football as well, but still incredible pass rushers. So that's where I have him. Washington, that's a tough one. I mean, again, I feel like I have to go interior here, but even the interior, Jonathan Allen's pretty good. Like, he's pretty good. Yeah, I think, again, I didn't expect this to be this tier, but it feels like the is still a number one is just like the, guys who are good interior guys who they're still so good as being in that tier as an interior is incredibly impressive, because it's hard to be a number one pass rusher as an interior guy. But one guy who makes it look easy is Chris Jones, who I don't think I'm going to quite put into beats double teams tier. Again, I don't typically see him often beating double teams. Again, maybe occasionally, but definitely someone who he's beating one-on-ones always. So you better double him for sure. That's definitely how I view Chris Jones. Next up is the New Orleans Saints, who I think I'm still going to go Cam Jordan at this point in his career, who I don't know if is as good as he used to be, but I still think even at this point in his career, to me, it's still a number one pass rusher. He might not be the top of the line guy that he used to be. Usually he would be in a much higher tier, but I still think is very good. The Giants honestly have three contenders. You have, Dexter Lawrence as an interior guy who is one of the best interior defensive linemen in football. But then on the edge, they added Brian Burns, who's really good, and you added, you have Kayvon Thibodeau, who not coming off his best year, but has still shown flashes. To me, it's between Burns and Lawrence, and even though I really like Burns as a player, I think I would probably rate Lawrence higher on this tier list, which is why I'm going to keep him here. I think I would put him all the way up into you better double him as well. One of the maybe real underrated players at this point in his career. I think he's really good. So we then have Jalen Carter of the Eagles, another guy who I feel like I have to put him. Again, they have good pass rushers, but I feel like Carter is their guy. I really do. So I'm going to put him in beats one-on-ones consistently. Again, you could maybe argue okay, they have other edge rushers, but I feel like Carter is probably their best pass rusher at this point. He does beat one-on-ones consistently. So there you go. Then we have the Steelers, who are another team. I'm going to, TJ Watt beats double teams consistently. He just does. It's the thing, him, Micah Parsons, and Myles Garrett feel like the three best pass rushers in football. Again, purely talking pass rush, I think this is fair. Next up is the Denver Broncos, who, I don't really know who to choose. They actually have some decent interior guys. Like Zach Allen, I guess, could be a choice, but, I don't know. He's not known for being a pass rusher. You have John Franklin Myers. Maybe he's, he's pretty good, I suppose. But again, I don't know if you're number one. Do I go with Nick Bonito here, Jonathan Cooper, Baron Browning, whoever I choose? I don't think that I think there's a question mark about them being a number one. That's how I view it. Rashawn Gary of the Packers feels like he's the obvious choice with them. Again, it's the issue is it's just injuries. It's just staying healthy. I think he's really good when he's healthy. So I'll still say number one. You're still a number one, but at a certain point you got to stay on the field. So yeah, that's where I have that. The Panthers with Clowney. Clowney's a really good player, really valuable player. I don't know if pass rush is fully where he shines, certainly as a number one guy. I think he does just enough. I'm still going to put him he's still a number one. Again, I don't know who else they lost Brian Burns, so I don't know who else I would really pick there. I could go Derek Brown, but I think if I went Derek Brown, I'd probably have him in a similar tier either as well. So yeah, this feels fair for me. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals, which I guess I got to go Dennis Gardeck, right? Who else is it? Who else do we go with here? Yeah, I don't know. I'll pick him. I'm sorry. I like him as a player. I don't think he's a number one pass rusher. There's a lot of, I think he's a fun player, certainly a valuable player, just not a number one in my opinion. The Bills, I have Gregory Rousseau. I think is probably going to be my pick. Again, like I could go Von Miller, I suppose. I could go Ed Oliver. But I think Greg Rousseau would be the pick, and I think that he's probably the only guy I would put above the "you're number one" question mark. I think I'd put him into he's a number one. I think he's really good. I think he's an underrated player. Someone does not get as much credit as he probably deserves, and can stop the run as well. Although that's not what we're factoring in here. So yeah. Next up is the Seattle Seahawks, who it's a bit of a tough. I think Leonard Williams is probably the guy here, right? I mean, I don't know. Draymond Jones is another interior guy, but he's not the pass rusher that Williams is. Williams can at least rush the passer pretty well. Boy, Mafe showed some real flashes last year, so you could argue him as well. I'll stick with Leonard Williams, and again, I'm willing to put him into number one pass rusher. That feels about right for me. So that's where I have him. And then finally, the New England Patriots. I really like Christian Barmore. I think he's probably going to be my pick. I can't really think of who else I would even consider. I guess Josh Uche is relatively good at rushing the passer, but no. Barmore's the guy. Barmore's, again, good. I like Christian Barmore. I think is still a number one tier in terms of his pass rushing. So, yeah. That is the list. That is where I rank everybody. A lot more interior guys than I expected. Maybe if I did this list again, I wouldn't do the interior and simply instead just do like best edge rushers. But I don't know. It kind of made it for a more interesting list. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.